Hi, I'm Hope from the Denver Public Library, and I'm here to show you all of the things you need to start getting cross-stitching at home. So you might have been shopping and seen little kits, but some of the kits for cross-stitching don't necessarily have all of the things you need to do the project. Or you might have found ones that do have all the things, but they're a really tiny pattern or a pattern that you're not thrilled about stitching. So, in order to stitch whatever pattern you find, one of the first things you're going to need is Aida cloth. This is a loosely woven cloth that's kind of this grid-like pattern that helps you keep track of your stitches and also make sure that all of your stitches are the same size. It can come in packages like this if you buy it from a craft store. I got this one from a thrift store, which is a great place to find crafting materials. Or if you go online, you can also find it that it comes folded like this, so they can just mail it in an envelope. Clearly it comes in different colors, but the most important thing is that it comes in different counts. This one, for instance, is 11 count. That means you can fit 11 stitches in a square inch of the fabric. And this is important because some patterns will require certain counts of Aida cloth. And you can size up or size down what your pattern winds up your finished pattern winds up looking like. This one, for instance, is a 22 count compared to the 11 count. The 22 is much more linen-like. The next thing that you're going to need is a needle. And needles also come in sizes, depending on what count of cloth you're using. You can screenshot that. A very useful chart that I always have on me whenever I go shopping to make sure that I have enough of the right kind of needles. Because you don't want a needle that is too big on, say, a 22. If it's too big, it might not go through very easily, or if it's too small and you're trying to use it on, say, 11 count, it might fall through and you'll lose the needle, possibly step on it or sit on it, and nobody likes that. So make sure that you're getting the right size needle for the count of Aida cloth you will be using it with. This is kind of what the needle packaging looks like. You will notice that it says that it has a round end on it. This is because you don't need the sharp end because the holes are already in the cloth. You'll be stitching from hole to hole, basically. The next thing you need, or some people say you don't need this at all, is an embroidery hoop. I like embroidery hoops because they keep things nice and taut so that you make sure that your final piece doesn't have any weird bubbling or anything because you weren't keeping your stitches the same level of tautness. This one is wood. I really like the wood ones. They come in various different sizes. This one is a plastic one. Some people really like plastic. This particular one has kind of a little lip on it that you can see that helps keep the fabric in place easy as well. The next thing that you are going to need is a needle threader. This is a nice little tool that I love. It saves a lot of time. You don't necessarily need it, but I really like it because it makes actually threading my needle a lot easier. Next thing you're going to need is the embroidery floss. So this is a 6-stranded cotton floss from DMC. DMC is kind of the standard brand here in the States that most patterns will assume you have access to. So when you see the keys for which colors a pattern needs, chances are the numbers are going to refer to DMC floss. And you can see the number there at the bottom. That basically, that way you can see that, okay, if you run out of floss for a forested something and there's a lot of leaves, you need to buy more of this color, you can just check the number and buy more of this exact same floss. The cool thing about DMC is that it's color fast, so when you wash your finished product, which I highly insist that you do, it won't bleed through and you won't ruin hours and hours of work. So this is embroidery floss. If you happen to be shopping and see this shiny pretty, this is metallic floss, also from DMC. If you are a new stitcher, I highly recommend you do not get this because it is very difficult to work with, even if you do know what you're doing and you are following the slightly altered techniques that you need to use this. It's a pain to work with, so if you are new, do not get the metallic floss or the satiny, shiny floss that is also sold nearby. Stick with the cotton stuff. So to store your floss, because you don't want a big tangled mess at the bottom of a bag, you can get these little bobbins that should also be sold in the same aisle that you get your floss in. You can wind the floss around it, or you can buy a little machine that will wind it for you. And the cool thing about these is that you can get a ring like this. Sometimes they're sold together. You can pop that on there, and all of the different colors that you need for a particular project, especially if you're like me and work at multiple projects at once, this will help you keep track of all of the colors you need for a specific project. Also, if you're like me and you have an issue with going to buy a specific color and looking around the aisle and going, ooh, that's pretty, you can also get one of these, which helps you store a lot more floss than just the rings will. These are also sold with the bobbins, and the cool thing about this is that they have this bigger section here that you can either fit excess floss into, or you can have your embroidery scissors and needles stashed in here. Speaking of embroidery scissors, they look like this. They have this nice, sharp, short blades. These ones are kind of fun because they have snakes on them. And these just make it really easy to be able to get in nice and close to what you're stitching, so that if you mess up or you need to just snip off the end of a line of stitches, then you can do that very easily with these. You don't have to have embroidery scissors if you don't want them. They're one of the more expensive pieces of cross-stitch stuff that you will buy. So you can use any scissors that are around the house, but I do recommend something with shorter blades and that the blades be sharp so that you don't fray your floss. The last thing that you're going to need is a pattern. You can find patterns in craft stores, online, all over the place. We have library books that have some. And if you are brand new to cross-stitching, I highly recommend getting one that has a word or a phrase or some sort of lettering going on, because letters are a lot easier to get the hang of. It helps you feel accomplished a lot easier than if you do a more complex picture-y type pattern. So those are the basic things that you need to start cross-stitching, and happy stitching at home.